Welcome to our podcast. My name is Ivan. I'm co-founder of Rwanda Business. The podcast we want to start is we'll be looking into Rwandan businesses and get to learn from them. So, Kalpam, you are a founder of a business that's based in Rwanda. To start us off, can you tell us about yourself, the story of your company, what problem you set to solve, and why does it matter to you?
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to see you again. I think the last time we talked was a while back before we even started the Kayko. Kayko is a fintech for small businesses based in Rwanda. We equip small business owners with tools to manage their finances and access capital. The reason we started Kayko, my brother and I were co-founders. We had this idea of why do we keep hearing that there is a high attrition rate of small businesses in a country like Rwanda, but even across the continent. And the main reason was because they can't access capital, right? You probably know a relative or yourself, you probably started a small business, trying to turn your passion into, a livelihood or, an income generating business, building a business without a lot of support, without a lot of structure. That's why you have a lot of businesses that close before they hit their 5-year birthday. So we started asking, why can they access this capital? And the main reason is when you look at the different institutions that provide capital to businesses, they all say the same thing about small businesses. They're high risk, they're uninvestable. And why are they uninvestable? So we kept asking why, and we got to the problem, like the reason why these banks and the finances and investors don't really want to invest in a small business is they can't see a track record. They can't see that business's health on a piece of paper or at least in a way that they can feel safe or feel comfortable investing, right? And it will be the same for you. If you have your money and you want to deploy it, you want to put your money into a business, you want to know, okay, how much does this business make? What are its assets and liabilities? What's their ability to repay this money that I'm about to invest? Most small businesses are usually run by people who are just either passionate or that's the only resort for them to earn a livelihood. And they're not necessarily accounting professionals, can't afford to have accountants, they can't afford to have a CFO or a finance team. So that's why you find that they have these fragmented business records, these informal business records, because they're really operating from a survival mindset. We looked at the reality on the ground and had even our own experience. Our own mom used to have a catering business that she wanted to turn into a restaurant. But no matter how well it was operating, she couldn't prove to anyone to invest in her. She ended up having to close that. That's the same story for hundreds of thousands of other people that want to grow their business, but can't bridge that gap between their data and finance. So we looked at the different solutions that are out there. You have these ERP systems like SAP, you have this accounting software like QuickBooks, and they're all designed for more sophisticated or learned business owner or accounting professional. And that's not who you find on the streets of Kigali trying to sell, construction materials in a hardware shop. That's not the mama who's just opened a supermarket in the neighborhood and wants to improve her life. So we look these principles and brought them down in a way that's still according to the globally accepted standards for accounting. We looked at the normal user behavior. How do these business owners operate? What type of tools do they use? They use WhatsApp, they use YouTube, they use TikTok, they use alarms and calculators. We looked at specifically the calculator app because we noticed everyone was using a calculator in their daily operations. Design Kayko from a calculator perspective. You enter how much you've sold, and save it. You enter how much you spent, how much you purchased, and we take all this data and we do the heavy lifting or the financial statement modeling using this data. It has really decreased the intimidation many people had for tools like QuickBooks and Xero. We made it so simple that it's just a matter of giving us your inputs. Every day we provide a report. This is how much I made. This is how much I spent. This is my inventory. This is my highest selling product. We give you a picture of your business so that even the decisions you make tomorrow are based on data and not just gut feeling. And that's when we started seeing, our users like really giving us great feedback, recommending their friends and family to start using it. And slowly but surely, we started seeing some steady growth. We started seeing more businesses coming on, multiple staff. I'm the boss. Maybe I have a cashier, I have an accountant, a stockkeeper. Every single person is using Kayko. And I'm getting a report every week of how my business is performing. So now we would allow these businesses that want to grow to have the tools they need to not only optimize their daily operations, but now focus on the next phase without having to worry about the foundation they have laid. So that was Kayko in its infancy. We started reaching, a couple of hundreds of business owners, and we started getting attention from the government, from these ESOs, these entrepreneur supporting organizations that wanted to incorporate Kayko in their programs. And we started seeing more businesses signing up. At the core of our mission is still helping businesses to manage their finances and access capital. I've built a strong foundation with tools that help these businesses manage their finances in a formal way, helping them make that leap from the informal sector to the formal sector. Now we're going to be using the data generated on Kayko to help them access capital more efficiently, taking down lengthy application processes from weeks, sometimes even months, to minutes, if not seconds. So that is what we're building right now, the credit infrastructure that will now power the businesses using Kayko to unlock capital using the data that they generate with our tools.
Oh, thank you so much, Kurtan. Thank you for explaining it from literally the infancy to up where you are now. And I have to recommend you for what you have built. Personally, I studied computer science with your brother, who was the CTO of the company I did. And I saw that our former teacher is now an entrepreneur, and they were using Kayko to run the systems and the business. And I was so impressed, and I love that moment that even when it comes to countries like Rwanda, someone may have a job and may have a site project on the side, a shop, and mums and pop shops, as they call them. But it's really important what you have done. Let's get to this part of you as a company, and that's we're going to learn this. So first of all, congratulations, you have raised a round. So how much have you raised, and what did this process teach you about fundraising as a company, and what can other small medium enterprises learn from them? I think you're helping also learn about the idea of, having capital injected in them. Starting from you, how much have you raised, and what did you learn throughout the process, and how is this race going to help you go from that next stage that you told me about?
Yes, thank you. So we raised $1.2 million for our seed round. And as I said, going into this new phase, helping businesses to access capital efficiently, this is what that money is coming to do. I will talk about the process in which fundraising works, especially from a point of view of a Rwandan founder. But what we're building is really reliant on putting together dozens of different systems to be able to provide this capital to businesses in a way that hasn't been done before. If you think of a typical way banks extend capital to small businesses, for those that do, is these businesses, they come to a branch, they get the requirements, usually between 20 or 30 different documents they need to put together. Most of these documents we already have from the business registration certificate, their tax compliance, their personal identification, their financials, of course. And we're basically able to put together a picture of who this business is, their ability to access this loan and be able to pay back. And then, of course, the repayment and the recovery. We're taking all these different documents that someone would have spent days, sometimes weeks to hire or find someone to help them get all these documents. We're bringing them on one platform. So there is no longer that whole ruckus of going back and forth between different institutions. Now we've understood who you are as a business. Can we study your ability to take in this capital and your ability to pay back? That is the whole credit analysis job that we are building the infrastructure around it, bringing together different components, machine learning, but also with proven credit policy algorithms. And the other part is now the disbursement, the repayment, and everything, which we're building wallet infrastructure for that as well. That is why we raise this capital, to be able to build this whole credit infrastructure. The other part is having a proof of concept. The way we want to do this is to work with balance sheet partners that have their own balance sheet that they want to use to fund SMEs, and for us to be the conveyor of these funds to the SMEs. We are also putting in our own capital to this proof of concept. But the reason why these balance sheet partners are important is because we want to have a model that can be scalable outside Rwanda, not just Rwanda alone. So coming back to your question on, as a Rwandan founder, I would say is something that I'm also new to. This is my first time raising capital for a startup, but it's possible. There's quite a steep learning curve for anyone really, but it's not impossible. It's just getting in as many people's faces as possible. I had to pitch to almost 180 different VCs and family offices and angel investors, and all it takes is one. You can use that to have a number of other people. Once they've seen that someone else has invested, they're more willing to invest. So I would say it's a numbers game, a patience game, but it's not. It's very possible. One thing I did see is, because Rwanda, Africa in general, is not such a big market for venture capital, you have to get out of Africa to go to these different cities where VC funding has really taken stage, and then confidently pitch your product or your startup, but as well pitching your country, because that's something that many of these VCs don't really know about. They don't know what Rwanda is all about. So you have to grab a couple of slides from the website.
Yeah. And that's what bringing to your company on it. You're also pitching Rwanda because they want to know how does the country deal with what you're doing. That's
especially like I feel like this, where you're not building in a bubble, you're interacting with different institutions. They have to understand these institutions have been digitized for almost a decade. It's just a matter of bringing all these pieces together. I'll say half of the presentation is really pitching Rwanda. So,
and that's very true. And let me take you on that to ask you the next question. What role do local partnership, government policy, and the ecosystem play in your growth as a company? And what do you think the gaps are for small businesses? How has the partnership with the government, the ecosystems, the local partner, how has it played? And which gaps do you think could be fixed?
it's of the utmost importance, I would say, for two things mainly. So one is, for us, we're operating in a regulated environment, right? Lending, while it's very highly regulated, so you have to know what the law is, who sets the regulation, who you're accountable to, making sure you are building with all these things in mind so that if you get to a point where you have to raise capital, you know what you're talking about and there won't be any delays. Okay, now you've got the capital. Are you going to start from scratch just like anyone else? No, you have to know this is what I have to get from RDB, from RRA, from the central bank, from the cybersecurity authority, all these different institutions. And it's so much easier when you know how to explain your product or how to just start up to these institutions, aligning or showing the alignment in the national priorities, right? So like for us, apart from building this to help these small businesses to access capital, we're formalizing a huge informal sector of micro, small, and medium-sized businesses, which is very much in line with what the government is doing. We are really implementing something that they really want to do. So that's why it was very easy for us to go to an institution like Rwanda Revenue Authority, and they really understand and they give us their APIs to connect so that our customers can easily provide tax compliance receipts, file their taxes directly with us, and reduce the bureaucracy they struggle with most of the time. The other part, apart from regulatory compliance, is also brand trust. And brand trust, I would maybe explain it in two ways. So there is national brand trust and also international brand trust or foreign brand trust. Nationally, when we go to a business, they'll ask us, are you guys working directly with the government? Does the government know you? Like, how sure am I that if I give you this data, you're not going to sell it to like some foreign companies? And like, are you registered in Rwanda? Do you have the right paperwork? You'll be surprised. You'll find a lady selling gold, like wood in Austin. Do you guys have the? And they're like, are you compliant with national data protection law? So when we show her like certificate from the cybersecurity authority, she feels more comfortable. There's a lot of precedents of companies that just take this data and they disappear, and it really hurts the end user. Yeah. It also helps us like get into the right forums, the right, federations with the private sector. It's much easier for us to close even more people that way. And then outside Rwanda, once they see these guys have partnerships with Rwanda Revenue Authority, they have a license from this institution in Rwanda, it's much easier for them to do their due diligence because they know someone else has done that due diligence. So yeah, I would say it wouldn't have been possible without actively engaging the government authorities.
I just want to add, it's important to what you just said in terms of engagement. That's something we get. Rwanda Business operates mainly in the UK and around Europe. And some questions we get is someone, if I invest in a business in Rwanda, how is it secure? How is it good? Most people are afraid. And I want to put these questions to them. If you're someone in the Rwanda diaspora or someone abroad who hasn't experienced Rwanda, what would you tell them if they are having any fears in terms of investing in Rwanda, in terms of starting a business back? What advice would you give them based on your experience, not only starting a business, but also dealing with the policies?
Yeah, well, I will give a weight answer to that because anywhere you go, from most developed economies to the smallest economies, you'll find different ways people do things. But I'll say, for the most part, in Rwanda, we are very structured when it comes to how businesses operate, which is great for us. We're building tools that formalize these businesses. We don't have to build a whole business registry platform. It's already there. We don't have to build tax platforms already there. Every single institution has been revamped and digitized. So there is no crazy bureaucracy that will delay you for weeks on end. Depending on what you are looking for in terms of registering, getting the right paperwork, you just have to do your research, ahead of time. know how much time you need to set aside before the business starts. If it's a license that takes maybe 6 months for processing, it's going to be 6 months. If it's registering your business, that's 6 hours flat, sometimes even less. 6 hours is the maximum. If you do your own research well enough, everything is clear, transparent, and online. This is what I'm expecting. Am I investing and should I expect a return? Yes, obviously. Every company that is registering in Rwanda, local or foreign, they are all doing it because they see what's on the ground. You see the real estate market, you look at the finance industry, you look at hospitality. I mean, even from our own users, like small businesses, you can see by the number of new businesses starting and flourishing, something is definitely happening and it's trickling down to all these business owners and customers. So, of course, there's still a long way to go, but there hasn't been a better time to start a business in Rwanda than now. Everything is geared towards enabling businesses to operate smoothly. Of course, not everyone will have this same experience because of different factors, most likely based on what you are starting or what you're building. In my experience, there is a sort of level playing field when it comes to building something, especially if it's an innovation, especially if it's something that is going to add and not detract from the interest as a country.
Thank you so much. I like how you summed up everything about creating a business in Rwanda. Everything is timely, there's processes everywhere, and they keep their promises. They tell 6 hours, 6 hours is 6 months, and that's what we love. Coming to you as a company, what does success look like for your company in the next 3 to 5 years? Beyond revenue or valuation, how do you see improving the ecosystem with the new injection you just get? How do you see you as a company, but also the SME in Rwanda? How do you see the enterprises that you're helping, but also you as a company? How do you see it improving in the next 3 to 5 years?
I would say for us really is to build a very strong proof of concept here in Rwanda. And because the problem we're addressing is not just unique to Rwanda, it's across the continent. And it's one of the reasons we don't see the growth that we were promised when we look at the general overview of businesses in Rwanda, but also in Africa. They're really hardworking, like you have people that are really putting in the work, they have a strong clientele. When it comes to the rest of this industry, there's not much support, right? So what we want is to build a very strong foundation here in Rwanda, where a small business can start without fear of growth, without fear of, oh, if I start growing, maybe I will start sharing taxes and everything, like things that are really scary to me. What we want is to remove that so that from the moment someone starts, if you're doing retail in the hospitality industry, building a pharmacy, anything, you start with the hope that you are going to build something big and you're going to live off it, employ people, and thrive. We want to change that narrative when it comes to building a business. And we want to take that outside Rwanda to our region, in East Africa and West Africa. Part of what we raised this capital for is to find partners in markets that have the same types of systems in Rwanda, or else semi or more or less more digitized than Rwanda, so that we can bring together all these different points and the large network, make SME lending as simple, if not simpler, than in more developed or Western markets where someone can start a business and worry more about the red tape than the capital. We want to flip that so that people don't have to worry about where they're going to get their capital for growth.
I do like that. And I commend you for what you're doing for SMEs in Rwanda, because I think you're at the very perfect middle point, because not only you're helping the informal businesses turn to formal businesses in terms of doing business reality systems, but you're also helping them access to capital. So when you look at small businesses, digitalization is a big issue. asset capital is another issue, and you are solving both at the same time as you grow those markets. So I do commend you, and thank you so much. And good luck as you take over not only Rwanda, but also the region and the whole Africa as whole and the whole world. And congratulations again.
Thank you, Ivan. It was a pleasure to talk with you.
I'll leave where you're building your website and all the links in the bio and everything. What's everything. Thank you so much.
All right.